Do you want to know one of the major killers of relationships? You might think it's something obvious, like infidelity or lying. But the real killers are less obvious, like keeping your partner guessing and playing hard to get. If you're using these tactics, let's talk about why they don't work and what you can do instead to keep a man interested and create a healthy relationship. So here's a scenario I see in my office literally all the time. I even had this happen 3 times in the last week. I'm talking to 2 people who are dating, and she has issues and problems and things that she wants him to deal with. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and I'm being sympathetic, and I turn to him and I ask, "Did you know any of that?" And the answer 90% of the time is no, which in this case makes me turn back to her and say, "Did you actually tell him what he was doing that he needs to do better?" And again, the answer is no. More often than not, she thinks that by acting upset or by dropping hints or whatever it is that she wants him to get without actually saying it is going to communicate it. Here's the thing though, it doesn't work that way. You actually have to communicate. And that, my friend, is where the root of so many relationship problems are, in sending mixed signals instead of having clear, concise, accurate communication. Think in your own life. Has there been a time when you've been upset with someone and then realized that they had no idea that you were upset? I see this happen all the time. It's because people aren't mind readers, and oftentimes we aren't on the same page. And when you're not on the same page, you're not communicating effectively, and that can ruin a relationship if it's not addressed. It doesn't even have to be the big things. There are a lot of small ways communication shows up and can be toxic in a relationship. Not responding to texts or emails, playing hard to get, sending mixed signals about your intentions or desires, or simply not talking enough with the person you're dating or in a relationship with. Let's talk about 3 low-value communication red flags to avoid in your relationship and what you should be doing instead. The first low-value communication red flag is making assumptions. Remember, people are not mind readers. You can't assume that when you speak, he's going to understand what you're saying, at least not in the way you want him to. If you assume that what you're saying is obvious and you don't check in to make sure he understands it correctly, then there's a good chance you will be misunderstood. I hear this from people all the time, that they're upset about something and they assume that their partner has already understood what is being said to them. She'll say, "Shouldn't he just know what I'm upset about?" And the answer is no, he really shouldn't, and he really doesn't. Here's an example. What if you're dating someone who leaves his clothes everywhere and it makes you crazy? This happened to a friend of mine in college where she hated the mess her boyfriend left. His dirty clothes were everywhere. Literally, you could not see the floor. She tried to send him a message by gathering all the dirty clothes up and just piling them on his desk. She assumed she was being super clear about what she felt, but you know what she didn't do? She didn't actually tell him what she was upset about. In reality, she was just sending mixed signals and playing games instead of having a straight communication. And guess what happened? He would just, as soon as he saw it on his desk, put it back on the floor because he needed to use his desk. And as you can guess, the problem was not resolved. Making assumptions can be incredibly damaging to relationships at any stage. Think for a moment what it's like when someone gives you mixed signals that you then have to decode. Trying to guess what they mean creates a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability, which in turn can cause a lot of problems in your relationship. This can be especially toxic if you're trying to build a long-term relationship. Couples who have been together for a while fall into a trap of assuming that their partner should know them better by now. And that's not always true. We are always growing, therefore we always have to keep learning. So what should you do instead? Don't assume someone else just knows what you mean. When you have a problem or a concern, bring it up with actual words in a conversation, not text them. Talk about them. And check in with your partner during the conversation by saying things like, "Okay, so what did you hear me say?" And make sure that they understand what you actually said. If they miss something, don't get angry. Fill in the gap so that you know you're on the same page instead of just assuming and instead of escalating it to an upset. Always check in with each other. And If you're new to my channel, I'm all about giving you advice and actual tools you can use to win at relationships. So if you're finding this helpful, stick around. The second low-value communication red flag is that unpredictability makes men anxious, not more interested. If you think that unpredictability will keep a man interested or make him attracted to you, I'm just going to be real with you right now. You're wrong. Trust me, I'm a guy. And really all it does is make us anxious and pull away. Women sometimes think that it will help to keep them on their toes or keep him guessing. But unpredictability is not a good way to keep a solid foundation for a relationship. It's simply too unstable. The truth is unpredictability only makes us insecure and therefore less interested in you, especially since you aren't being honest or authentic with us. If you're playing hard to get and sending mixed signals, we are going to start to worry. For example, when you're texting with a new guy, do you obsess over how fast to reply? You're interested, but you're maybe worried about seeming too eager or too invested early on. So you wait to reply, and you carefully write and rewrite your text, deleting over and over and over again. He's writing back, but sometimes you wait a few hours or even days to reply to him. This is playing games, and this is something you want to avoid. You might think that you're playing hard to get and keeping the guy interested by being mysterious. But really, all it does is make him think that you're not interested, and he's going to pull away, and that's not what you really want. Do you want to know how to let someone know you're interested? Drum roll. You tell them. It's pretty simple. I know it seems super obvious or super forward, but really, being clear is the only way to make sure you are going to get what you want. And by the way, if you're enjoying this video and getting good stuff, go ahead and hit the like button for me. It makes me feel happy to know that I'm being useful to you. The third and last low-value communication red flag is that ambiguity creates mismatched expectations. If I say that we are going to have a great date tonight, what do you expect us to do? You might expect that we'd go to a fancy restaurant or go see that movie you really wanted to see. Maybe I got tickets to that amazing show that you've been excited about for weeks and have not stopped talking about. Notice that when I say great date, it doesn't actually tell you what we're doing, so your expectations could be all over the place. So how would you feel when I tell you that we are going to grab sandwiches from a little local deli and break open the fun new board game that I just bought? Excuse me, where's the tablecloth? Where's the candles? Where's the romance? Not in the deli, and it's certainly not at home with a board game. Have you ever had a super disappointing date? Tell me about it in the comments. When you aren't clear about what you want, you create ambiguity, which can be detrimental to a relationship. Here's the thing. If you are ambiguous, then you probably won't get what you want. For me, board games and sandwiches is a great date. But that might not be what you want. If you don't tell me what you want, or if I don't ask you, then I'm left guessing and I'm just going to do what I want to do. Now, instead of enjoying our date night, you're salty because your expectations were so high and weren't met. And I'm sad because no one will play my new board game with me. A way to avoid disappointment is, surprise, actually talk to your partner. You can ask questions like, hey, so what's your idea for a nice or great date night? Or, how do you like to spend quality time together? These conversations are a great way to learn about what your partner likes and share what you like. Then your expectations about a great date night are more on the same page and not two different pages called Michelin star restaurant versus deli counter and board games. Here's a great example of mismatched expectations from my own life. When I was in college, I brought my girlfriend home with me for winter break. We'd only been dating about 2 months at this point, and I thought we would just have a couple of nice days together to hang out. But she thought meeting my parents meant we were going to get married. So what did she do? She told my parents over dinner the names she had already picked out for our future kids, which she hadn't consulted me about, FYI. Talk about a horror show and talk about a great way to meet someone's parents. So this was a mismatched expectation because guess what? She had this big idea and soon it became hurt feelings and blow-ups down the line. P.S. We broke up right after because let's just be clear, that was not where I was at and Those expectations just didn't work. At the end of the day, relationships are already complicated enough. Don't actively make it harder by keeping your partner guessing. Instead, remember that you can be a high value woman and be a challenge to a man without the ambiguity in playing hard to get. Tell your partner what you want and be clear about your standards and expectations. You are a high value woman and should take care of and respect the man you're in a relationship with. And in return, you should expect the same respect in kind.